Shalom, friends. Akib here from Israel in 5, and I want to invite you to take part in a very important campaign of Meir Panim to help rebuild Israel after this war. This war brought a lot of devastation to so many individuals and families. Families that lost loved ones, families that lost their homes, their stability, their financial support, their financial sources. And Meir Panim is taking a leading role in Israel today to make sure that those who were hit the hardest during this war have the support, the love, the food, the financial resources in order to move forward, go on and rebuild their lives. But Meir Panim can only do it with your help. You can go to Israel5.org/donate and make a donation. That could be a one-time donation. It could be a monthly donation. And know that all of your money will go to help support the multiple programs of Meir Panim that are helping to rebuild Israel after the war. Whether they're the markets that over 10,000 families every single week go to get fresh produce, fruits and vegetables to bring home, or the tons of people that visit their centers throughout the country to get a hot meal every single day. Or it's going to literally rebuild damaged or destroyed homes and bomb shelters throughout the country. Meir Panim sees the need and it is doing something about it, but they can only do it with your help, with your support. Right? If you want to help rebuild Israel after this very unique and challenging time, you can do so by going to Israel5.org/donate, or click on the link below and make a donation and help Meir Panim help Israel. Right? Help Israel directly through your donation to Meir Panim. And as a thank you, Meir Panim will send you a special medallion that on one side has a picture of the Western Wall and has a quote that says, "I helped fight poverty in Israel." Right? You will be one of those people on the front lines of helping Israel after the war, helping Israel to rebuild, helping Israelis get their lives back together, to rebuild their lives, to move forward with stability, with support, with honor, and with respect. Right? Again, your donation will go to fund and to help Meir Panim continue its multiple programs around the country to help those most in need during this very, very unique and challenging time. Again, you can go to Israel5.org/donate to make a donation and to make a difference. Thank you so much, my friends. All the best and be well. With Israel having to fight multiple wars against the Hamas terror organization in the Gaza Strip over the last 20 years, the question needs to be asked, why wasn't the Gaza Strip part of the state of Israel from the beginning? Let's explore this very important question. Shalom, my friends. This is Akiva Gersh with Israel in 5, where we give you everything Israel in 5 minutes. Please like and subscribe if you have any questions or want to keep the conversation going. Please do so below in the comments. It's important to remember the history of this conflict. And the first real legal document, and as we're going to see, really the only legal document that said anything about what should happen with the land of Israel, the state of Israel, what we call Israel today in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, is the League of Nations mandate for Palestine that they gave to the British after World War I to carry out. Right? The mandate called for the establishment of a Jewish national home in Palestine, which at that time was basically what Israel is today, Gaza Strip, West Bank, and the country of Jordan. A couple of years later, they cut off what is now the country of Jordan and said that's off limits to the Jews, both for settlement and for land purchase. Right? So the rest of the land, from the river to the sea, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, that's what was left of the original mandate for Palestine, and that is what was meant to be the Jewish state. Right, so how to get carved up into basically three different pieces: Israel, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank. Well, over the next couple of decades after World War I, there was a lot of violence towards the Jews living in this land from the Arab community in this land, because they didn't want there to be a Jewish state. They didn't want the mandate for Palestine to come to fruition. They didn't want the Jewish dream of 2,000 years to reestablish Jewish sovereignty in the Jewish national home to come true. And so they fought against it very intensely and very violently. And it was very, very difficult for the British, and got to the point after World War II, the British basically lifted up their hands in defeat and said to the UN, which was newly created after World War II, you guys deal with it. We can't deal with it anymore. Right? This triangular conflict between the British, the Jews, and the Arabs. And as a result, the UN decided to vote on what they called the partition plan, to take what was left of the mandate for Palestine, which was all supposed to be this Jewish state, right, according to the legal document of the League of Nations after World War I, and to split it into two, into an Arab state and into a Jewish state. The Jews knew that they were supposed to get the whole thing, but they said, yes, fine, we'll go with it. Because if it's not now, it might not be ever. And if it's not this, we might not get anything. But the Arab leadership said no. And even though the partition plan was passed, it was voted on and passed in the UN, the Arabs said no, they rejected it, and they went to war the very, very next day. That's what started the War of Independence in 1948. It lasted about a year and a half between Israel and multiple Arab armies around the Middle East. So again, let's just pause here for a second and collect the data. According to the League of Nations mandate for Palestine, Gaza was supposed to be part of the Jewish state, was supposed to be part of the Jewish home, national home, because there was only supposed to be one country between the Mediterranean and the Jordan River. According to the partition plan, Gaza was supposed to be part of an Arab country that they were going to newly create there. But the Arab leadership themselves rejected it. Why? Because they didn't want there to be any Jewish state, right? So then what was left? The war. The war is what would determine the boundaries, the borders, the final borders, at least the temporary final borders at the end of the war. Let's just note very importantly that the UN Partition Plan, even though it came to vote and it passed, it didn't have legal weight. It came out of the General Assembly, which meant it had the legal weight of a suggestion, nothing that could be legally implemented. Right, so it didn't have the legal weight of the League of Nations, which again called for the Gaza Strip being part of the Jewish state. And then only after the war was over and there were armistice agreements, not peace agreements, armistice agreements, which is basically, ceasefire agreements, were signed between Israel and its surrounding neighbors. Only then was the Gaza Strip created, right? When Israel signed an armistice agreement with Egypt. Egypt was in the Gaza Strip. They had troops there. They had soldiers there. That's why they kept it. The fighting came to an end. And that's basically as much of the Gaza Strip, so to speak, that Israel won as a result of the war, right? It was much smaller than the original Gaza Strip was supposed to be according to the UN Partition Plan. But again, that partition plan didn't have any legal weight. The Arab leadership rejected the deal. They started the war and they lost land as a result. But that land never actually went to the people it was supposed to. Right? Egypt took the Gaza Strip illegally for itself from 1949 to 1967. Okay, so even though that land called the Gaza Strip was supposed to be part of the Jewish national home according to the mandate for Palestine after World War I, written by the League of Nations, it never did because things happen, right? The Arab countries got involved, they attacked Israel. There were Egyptian soldiers there, and Israel agreed to an armistice agreement in the end because they had to, right? They were like this newly born country fighting against 7 different countries, and they just wanted the war to be over so they can finally move forward with the vision of this newly created Jewish state. Okay, so that's what explains, that's how we understand, that's how we can understand why the Gaza Strip wasn't part of the Jewish national home, the state of Israel from the beginning, even though it was supposed to, but things went off track and a different reality set in. And that's basically why there's been such conflict around the Gaza Strip ever since, and why in the last 20 years, Israel has had to fight multiple wars against the Hamas terror organization, the Gaza Strip, right? Because they have been using it as a launching pad of attempted destruction against Israel, the Jewish state. All the best, my friends, and be well.